Alright, so getting back to the musty front axle steering build. I've been working on it lots after work, but just doing things that I don't really need to record, and I will show you exactly what I'm doing and how everything fits together and everything. I've been busy on the lathe, just making a bunch of parts. Again, if I didn't have that tool, I wouldn't be doing a lot of this extravagant building, and it would just cost me so much more money to go buy things. I don't like buying things. I want them now, and it's easier and faster just to build them for the most part. Let's get onto the table here, and I'll show you a few parts that I got made, and then once the painted parts are back, they'll be on the table here too, and I'll show you that. All right, so I've just been cleaning everything up, getting my bolts sorted out. I also cut out, I'll actually show you that real quickly here, cut out on the frame right here an extra hole. So I've had a few renditions of steering setups in here, but this is hopefully the final one. But anyways, I got this universal joint coming through, and then a 3/4 inch shaft. On the table is that shaft. So I've got it cut to length here. I got 3/4 inch so that it slides into my 3/4 inch weld on universal joint, and that one will go underneath the one you guys just saw. And then I have it laid down so that this slides into that universal joint, and it will get clamped in there. And then I laid up this little bearing block, so I press this bearing in, that fits snugly on this shaft, and that will support this universal joint and then the one that connects up to here. So under the mower and up top of the mower, everything's gonna be nice and strong. I just have to cut this at an angle to the angle that this is gonna sit at. Got my other 3/4 inch double D shaft. As you can see, it's just round, but I'll be turning it into some double D shaft. Honestly, just gonna do probably the end, because I did go ahead and get some double D universal joint and then spline on the other end to fit on there. Anyways, we're gonna get this all figured out. Let's get some painted parts back in the garage here, and just like, check it out. So parts are back from paint, and by paint, I just mean the other half of the garage where it doesn't get all dirty. So we went black, did some cast iron gray, and that fractured cherry red. And ooh-wee. Oh, and I forgot, on the Rogue Fab bender here, got that top cap also black. So this is all, I think, gonna look really good. A lot of these things you ain't gonna even really see, and the rest of the mower, I don't really paint a lot of things, but I'm starting to get a little more finalized. This front axle has not been painted its whole life. And I said the day I was gonna do it, I was gonna paint it, so it feels good to finally accomplish that. So the last thing I really gotta do is get my shim washers in and get that all finalized and figured out. I wanted to get this all painted because I need to get this thing done. I need to get Musty back out on the trails, making some more content for you guys. Let's get this thing assembled and we can get further on with this build. Unreal. Time to admit it where it's faulted. I'm faulted. I don't know if you guys just noticed that or not. You might have seen me pull this little chunk of metal out of here. The paint is, like, I painted into the holes in some spots, so like it was a tight little pound in for this one. This one seemed overly tight, and then by the time I did pound it through, my shim under the bearing inside of my knuckle, that's what I was pounding through. So that popped out of there, and now I'm going to need to do a little bit of extra work. So that's a bonehead move on my part, and for that, I get to do some extra work. So hopefully I learned my lesson. Don't keep pounding when it seems tighter than it is. I mean, some people live by other rules, but. All right, so that little washer there cost me the rest of my night. But got the new one in, we're all good to go again. Now I can shim it and we're good. So I just get rid of that little bit of play with using these shim washers. Awesome. I just knew I wasn't going to be able to sleep tonight knowing that fixed. We're good to go. We're moving on. Honestly, really loving how this is turning out. We'll see you guys tomorrow night if I get in here. I'm really hoping I can. Back at it. Okay, so what have we done? Well, we've got these all fully greased and shimmed. So that means I got the shims put in on the tops and bottoms. So if you're wondering why I milled out the top there, it's so I could add the shims in there, so I'm actually riding on the bearings how I want it to be. So this is a lot better of a setup, and with that side done and this side done, we can move on to the tie rods and getting this thing actually in musty. So bear with me, I'm getting to it. Again, I work a full-time job and have a life, and it's a lot to do all this social media and building stuff and just trying to, you know, enjoy life and have fun. So bear with me while I get all this stuff built and then edited, and well, you guys know the drill. Alright, so as you can see, getting the tie rods figured out. So once I weld this all together, it'll be one solid unit, but you kind of get the idea that I'm going for here, and then that will go over it like that one. And then I'll fully TIG weld there, TIG weld the inside, maybe even do a Rosetta weld, and we'll see. But anyways, that should be extremely strong. And well, just look at that front axle. I'm talking beef. Let's get this other one laid up and welded out, and we'll get back in here tomorrow and get this all nice looking good. Okay, so got my tie rods in, everything's kind of in, everything's still loose, but you can see the whole concept in action here. You can see I'm just spinning this with my fingers, and it's really easy, so imagine what it'll be like with the steering wheel on there and having that extra torque on there. That's going to be absolutely insane. Alright, so let's talk about my next big mistake that I made, because I totally forgot. Anyways, as you can see, when I hit my full side to side here, normally I built these knuckles so that the inside of the knuckle here, right here, would hit the axle at full steering so that I had nice steering stops. But the sweep of this, the rack and pinion, doesn't allow me to get as much steering sweep as I wanted. So I'm gonna have to grind some of this paint down and add a piece of metal in there so that when this comes all the way to the inside or to the outside, the knuckles are hitting the front axle again. So I'm gonna just have to do a little bit of paint grinding and then add some plates in there, but that'll be super simple. But I had to get everything built so I know exactly where these actually hit the steering stops, because I want this to stop at the exact same time as the steering rack, so that when I'm leaning on this tire or whatever tire I'm leaning on really hard, all the weight of the mower is pushing on that, it's not going to try and blow this tie rod through the rack and pinion here. So it's actually going to put all the pressure on the front axle and stop things from binding up or snapping or anything like that. So that's why we do these kind of things, and you got to really actually spend the time to make sure that your knuckles or your spindles stop at the same time as your steering, or even better, to actually make your knuckles stop before your steering stops, so that when you torque on the steering wheel, it's just torquing onto the knuckles, which are torquing on the steering stops. So anyways, there's a little tech tip on that, but I'm really happy with how this is coming. What do you guys think on the tie rods, leaving them as is? I'll give them a quick little buff and clear coat them. Do you think that kind of suits the rest of this, or should I buff them right down to silver again and leave this all silver? Leave it in the comments and I will do that. Next thing to do, figure out my steering stop plates and get those welded in. All right, so back at it, next day, yesterday, whatever you want to call it, we got the steering stops added in, so front and back. So not only does each knuckle hit a steering stop, so when you steer to the left, it hits the front and the back side of it, so two there. It also butts out on the actual steering itself right before this hits. So if these two happen to fail, it would stop on the rack. But you don't want it to stop on the rack. You want it to stop on something strong, because we put a lot of force, like I was saying. But anyways, I got that all TIG welded in there with the new TIG welder. We got everything pulled off, so we're ready to get this repainted again and then assembled. So with that getting all painted up, I'm gonna get my bearing races pressed into here, and then we can get this whole thing reassembled and back in the mower. Finally. Anyways, it's coming along. Got everything kind of figured out. Spindles, everything on the tie rods. So let's do this. I'm excited. I'm sure you guys just want to see this thing put together in the mower and see how it actually works. Alright, so before I press my bearing races in, I'm going to actually make a spacer that fits in between the two races there. There is a raised edge there where I had to laid out so that these are a tight fit, but it's not as much as I want, and the fact that I'm going to be pressing on these two bearings up against each other to preload them, I'm just going to put a spacer in there so that when they press up against each other, they'll be pressing right up against each other and they can't move back and forth in there. I doubt I'll be able to press the bearing over that little raised area there. Just going to make it just for peace of mind. Quick and easy little piece of hardened nylon. Super easy material to work with on the lathe and will not get compressed. Okay, let's continue on with this little bearing race install. Oh yes, everything is bolted in, tightened down, stover nuts or nylon nuts on everything, so it's everything's got locking nuts on it. Super tight. Like the system is just like there's no play in anything, and it's just super smooth. Banging off them steering stops, you don't have to worry about it. If you guys are building your own front axle, it is a lot of work. I enjoy this kind of work and all the machining that it was, and it's such a fun project for me, so I don't mind doing this kind of stuff, and it really improves the ride of my mower. And man, my steering's been messed up for so long. This is just going to be so awesome, and it's, again, just, it's so dope. So, with that mounted up in there, that holds the top steering U-joint and this bottom steering U-joint from trying to move. And then with that, I don't have to worry about bracing this one. So as you guys know, we got the steering wheel, the quick release, our main steering tube, our support tube, our support bearing block there, and then down inside we got the U-joint, the secondary bearing support, and then I'm just about to weld up the drive shaft here, or the main steering shaft. So that's where that main, or the secondary bearing support is, and then down under the mower here to the two universal joints, and this side connects to the actual rack. So great setup here. Again, these are 3/4 inch universal joints. You can get them off Amazon for like your hot rod or whatever, and then 3/4 inch shaft as well. This is super overbuilt, but I should never have any issues with this, and if I need to do new universal joints, I can. Anyways, almost getting there. I'm gonna weld this up and we're gonna get on our way. Alright, making progress. So we pulled the TIG welder out. We TIG welded the end shaft here so that now the U-joint will slide right on, and we got our set screw there to hold it all in place. So the other thing I've been working on, now there's no grease, or no grease can leave and no debris can get in. So I'm gonna see if that works. I just made these O-rings out of a longer O-ring, so we'll see if that all works out. As you can see, that's what I'm up to. I'm about to pack these bearings and get this thing actually installed into the mower. So let's do that. Workbench is a mess. Typical. You see what I mean by using those rubber O-rings on the side. So with that, I'm able to actually block off any debris that wants to enter into the grease area of the bearing and screw up the bearing. So I'm hoping those will last. We'll see. Great little idea I had, and it's gonna work out great, I think. All right, front axle bolts in. This thing pivots super nice. It's not tight, it's just that perfect tightness, I'd say. And then no play side to side, which is, I was nervous about that, but once I preloaded the bearing by tightening up the center pivot bolt, wow. Let's get this steering shaft installed and see if this stuff steers. Whew, loving it. Feels good to finally get to this point. It's a lot of work just because it's me that's doing all the work, so there's no one else to rely on or someone to buy your parts from or anything. It is nice being able to buy some parts like the rack and the universal joints and the Heim joints and whatnot, but everything in between and all the thinkaging is all done by me, so kudos to me for doing that. But anyways, super happy with this setup. We're gonna test it out today in the snow and on the rocks and whatnot, so we'll see how that does. But I mean, thanks again for watching and everything. Alright, so here's one of the best things I love about the steering rack, and that is how quick the steering is. So you can see as soon as I touch the steering wheel there, it's moving. It's direct input, so it works as soon as you start steering. There's no play in between other than on the teeth of the gears, which is fine. But anyways, that's freaking awesome. Like I was saying, you can do it all the way down. Hits the steering stops like we built, so we don't have to worry about that kind of thing. There's a lot of good things that are happening here, so I'm stoked. But yeah, having that is awesome. I can't wait to go out ride this. Going out today, so super excited, super strong. Good to go, really happy. You got it.